Hello, I'm Dr. John Beaulieu, and this is for Quantum Cranial. And this is something for you to see and understand, because I'll be making references to vibration, to tone, to rhythm, and to sound, especially when it comes to the cranium and cerebral spinal fluid, and we call the potentization of cerebral spinal fluid. And we need to understand that sound is part of a continuum of vibration, and that continuum of vibration basically has what we call vibrational behaviors. That is, a sound is a wave, and a sound can also repattern water. It can repattern everything around. So the wave is a form, and the form is a wave. And on a quantum level, a wave is a wave, and a wave simultaneously is a particle. They are one and the same. So there are many things we don't necessarily see, and yet at the same time we need to realize that when tuning into a felt feeling tone, when we're tuning into a vibration in our body, we're also tuning into and repatterning ourselves to that vibration. And one of the best ways to understand that is through cymatics, which is sound that we hear with our ears, and how it affects different substances. So what I want to do is go to screen sharing, and we're going to take a look at some cymatics pictures, and then I'm going to show you a video so you understand how those pictures were made. So first, let's go here. And what you're seeing first is a picture of Dr. Hans Jenny, and you'll notice that there's a speaker and there's a metal plate and some equipment. It's old because these were done in the 1950s. And Dr. Jenny was a medical doctor and a follower of Rudolf Steiner. And so what we see in the picture is first the plate with the sand on it. And we see the speaker, so that underneath the plate is an oscillator that's vibrating. So if you were in the room, you would hear the sound. You would also see the sand take on different shapes when the frequency of the sound was changed. So anyway, the frequency of the sound is basically repatterning the shapes on the plate. So if we go look at some pictures, this is sand, and we look at this picture and you think, somebody could have drawn this. If we didn't know this was created by sound and vibration, we would have no idea that it was the way that it is. It's just some artist came along, they made a sand painting. And if you were to take your hand and try to change it without knowing that it's created by vibration, without changing the vibration that created it, it would go right back to the same pattern. In other words, you cannot force a vibrational change. You can only change vibration through a different vibration. So that's sand, and you see another pattern, and another sand pattern close up. Everything's vibrating. We don't see it, but it is vibrating. And this is what we really want to look at. This is a water droplet being vibrated to a frequency. And you'll notice that, of course, it takes on a geometric pattern. And we're going to take a look at cerebral spinal fluid, which is basically water with a little bit of saline. It's actually crystal water. And we're going to talk about how it is we could use vibration that we feel in our body when we're working with somebody. We can visualize the vibration and so on in order to repattern cerebral spinal fluid. And so we look at another change the frequency, we change the pattern. Right, we'll do it again. We have a different pattern. All these are just basically patterns in water. We're not hearing the sound, but we're going to see that they all have different, every time the sound changes, the pattern changes. This is really what I want you to get, is that every sound or every tone you make, everything you tune into inside of yourself, what we call a feeling tone, is a vibration. And that vibration, when you focus on it, will always repattern you. And you'll see sand on a plate and you hear a sound, and when the sound changes, you're going to see the pattern change. Good, so I'm going to go back and I just point out a couple things. First of all, you'll notice that everything on the plate is vibrating. The whole plate is vibrating. And you'll notice if you look at the plate, there's little particles of sand jumping in and out of the pattern. In other words, the pattern isn't perfect because the vibration in the plate, the sand is drawn, the sand is moving towards areas in the plate that are still. They're called nodes. There's basic nodes means a place where there's no frequency. So it could be the whole plate is vibrating with frequency, and yet there are places on that plate that have no frequency. And those are called nodes in sound. They're called nodes in quantum mechanics. They're called nodes in quantum chemistry. They're places where all the sand wants to go to, and there's not enough room for the sand to go into it, so it bounces back out and moves back in. So it's constantly vibrating around stillness. Now I stopped it here because as you see the pattern change, it gets all blurry. Because the sound changes, the pattern gets blurry. In other words, when you go, that blurriness in science is called chaos. In order to go from one pattern to another, you must first pass through a state of chaos or disorder. So everything in a way has to fall apart in order for a new pattern to resurface and to come in. And that's going to be very important for us in our work in quantum cranial to understand this process, this idea of order out of chaos. It's also important for us to understand that the word chaos is a positive word. In other words, if we want to change, we need to have a good relationship with chaos and disorganization. And so when you have a good relationship with disorganization, you begin to realize it's actually a sign that things are going to move in a different direction, and if you relax with it, you'll change much more quickly rather than resisting it. Most of the problems that we see are people resisting change. So I just show you a little bit more. And I'm going to stop. And when you look at this now, you see this pattern, and you can't hear the sound, and you think, oh, who drew that pattern? And yet you know that the pattern is created by vibration, and that in order to change the pattern, there's only one way to change it, and that's change the frequency of vibration that gave rise to it. The one thing that will never change in any pattern is the still points or the nodes that give rise to the pattern. So that's a good review. I want you to think about this, and we'll talk more about it in class. Thank you.